I was watching a television program that included the report that Delta and Coca-Cola were involved in criticizing the new voting act in Georgia. Now United Airlines and Apple have joined in the criticism. The commentator asked the rhetorical question as to why these corporations would do this. He even had some sort of expert guest whom he also asked the question. They didn't answer it. They either do not know the answer or they are avoiding the answer. There's an elephant so big in the room that everybody is ignoring. But we know the answer, don't we? Now the Major League Baseball has left Georgia rather than play the All-Star game there, also in retaliation for the racism of Georgia in passing their new voting act. There was a long list of companies which were involved in this boycott, and many of them are members of the Council on Foreign Relations, the organization we document in our book, In the Shadows of the Deep State. Perhaps we should have titled this book Taboo and Verboten, What You're Not Supposed to Notice. The CFR is never brought up on the air when discussing these things, when so many of such corporations are part of the problem, and in the circle of those who want to do away with the independence of the United States and merge us into their new world order under the United Nations. Even the group of companies Donald Trump wants people to boycott over this issue, several are not only CFR corporate members, but founders. J.P. Morgan Chase, Citigroup, Cisco. Even if the companies are not CFR corporate members, the leaders of many of these corporations are individual members. The Boeing Company is a corporate member, and that tells us a lot of why they're helping the Chinese develop their large frame aircraft manufacturing capabilities. The influence of the CFR in all American corporations is considerable because of the United States Chamber of Commerce. They're corporate members of the CFR. I think that when we go back to the third or fourth printing of this book, we should not only list the individual membership of the CFR as we do, but their corporate members as well, like Pepsi, FedEx, Pfizer, Walmart, Microsoft, MasterCard, Johnson & Johnson, and just about every major oil company operating in the United States. The interesting thing is that they object to the idea that Georgian voters need to have ID in order to vote. Well, Delta Airlines, the passengers on your airplanes need ID before they can get a ticket, ID to pass through TSA, and even a license to drive a car to the airport to even use it to get on your airplanes. Maybe this is racist too. Even though many of the corporations which are upset over this issue may not be corporate or individual members of the CFR, they're influenced by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. This influence is successful because they've received their education in schools that promote Marxist thinking and the Marxist agenda. They're not entrepreneurs, they're managers. They're not owners of businesses, they're custodians. They behave as they were taught. And some American international companies are run by foreigners, not Americans. Also, the pressure on them to fall in line is tremendous. Let me relate one story I'm very familiar with. Back in the day, Boeing was an anti-communist company, so much so that they showed the anti-communist films to their employees. One in particular was issued by the House of Representatives, which showed the influence of the Communist Party in the infiltration, agitation, and violence in America. It was mandatory that every employee see this film. After they'd gone through all of the employees, they opened up the company theaters to the immediate families of the employees to come and watch the movie as well. The title of the film was Operation Abolition. Once that was accomplished, the next step was to encourage, but not to make it mandatory, that the employees watch a film strip called Communism on the Map, which showed the international problem with communism. And all hell broke loose against the Boeing company. The entire left in America attacked Boeing. Contracts were canceled or threatened to be, and a big shakeup occurred on Boeing's board of directors. The CEO was replaced with a member of the CFR. Boeing immediately started to become a globalist company, and all of Boeing's political problems disappeared. All totaled, As a result of Boeing, probably 250,000 people saw these films. This was intolerable to the deep state, and so the pressure was applied. The censorship that occurred with communism on the map made it almost impossible today to even find a copy of that film strip. It's just completely, I wouldn't say completely, but it's very, very difficult to find. Interestingly, the showing of these two films was a project of the John Birch Society. How much this played in the Boeing story is unknown, but we do know that millions of people saw these films around the country. And over the years, this has been true of major films we have produced, such as Anarchy, USA. What we are saying is that there's a war for the hearts and minds of the American people. Part of that war is the exposure of not just the problem, but those behind the problem. Those who lament about the problem with the NBA and the corporate pressure on the state of Georgia say that the corporations have caved in to the Democrats. This does not even approach the root of the problem. If you do not show the organization behind all of this, then you're missing the fountainhead of what is going on. Think about it for a minute. How did all of these companies suddenly all agree that the Voting Act in Georgia was racist, literally overnight, joining en masse in their criticism? There is organization behind it. It is the elephant in the room. We cannot ignore it. We have to expose it. Again, set this book by the area where you watch television and look up the people and the companies which are joining in on this false racist narrative and the pundits who are ignoring the obvious. You'll get a much different picture of the influence behind the scenes of the deep state. It is also a good reference when you watch the news, and get other people to do the same. You can't get where you're going without a road map, and this is it.